We will make America strong again. We will make America rich again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again. America's men and women in uniform are the finest and bravest the world has ever known. We'll honor your service, your sacrifice, and that really begins with defending and respecting our American flag. We're not going to be the stupid people anymore, folks. We're not going to be the stupid people. I believe we're in the process of putting together one of the great cabinets that has ever been assembled in the history of our nation. Do you like it so far, everybody? Thank you, Iowa. Thank you. Thank you very much. God bless you, Iowa.
That's my hometown. Yeah, that's my hometown.
Yep, there she is. Abby Huntsman is live at a diner in West Des Moines in Urbandale, Iowa, and that large thing in her hand is that a single sweet roll?
Guys, this is a one-piece cinnamon roll. Well, it's supposed to be for one person. We can't get enough of these this morning.
Can we zoom in
Donna
on
here
that?
was just telling me her first. Donna was telling me her first experience eating a cinnamon roll here at the Machine Shed. What happened?
Well, I sat down at the table, and an elderly gentleman came and sat next to me, and I hadn't lived in the state for a while, and so he asked me, he says, well, would you share this with me? So I got a piece. Well, come to find out, when I introduced myself, he was the former governor of the state of Iowa.
Only here in Iowa. This would not happen in New York, guys, where someone would pass a cinnamon roll and say, do you want to share this with me? Is that the best?
Awesome.
Look at that.
Of course, she's talking politics and pancakes out there, and we're going to get reaction to Donald Trump's big talk last night at the Hy-Vee Hall there in Des Moines.
I thought she was going to say we ended up dating, we got married.
I know, that's where I thought I was going too. And now we're married.
Cute. All right, so thank you very much for joining us this morning. We are so lucky to have Kellyanne Conway, who's over at Trump Tower right now. She's one of Donald Trump's closest advisors. Good morning to you, Kellyanne.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, so we know that we've been watching the golden elevator doors open and close, more people going up to the 26th floor for job interviews. What do you make, and so far what we've seen is a real all-star team. Everybody looks great. But what do you make of the criticism as we look at the cabinet picks so far that, you know what, he's got too many generals. He's just setting himself up for a coup, essentially, is what they're saying. What do you say to that criticism?
I say that this is such a refreshing departure from rewarding donors or your personal friends with cabinet positions as you're forming your government. I mean, generals are serious people, Steve. They are folks who have proven themselves literally on the battlefield or figuratively with their distinguished service in the military or on behalf of our nation. And I keep reading that in places as if there's some kind of quota for the number of tough-minded, accomplished people. There is no quota for the number of tough-minded, accomplished people who are qualified to do each of these jobs. So I think that's one of the many specious attacks putting forward by the election deniers 1 month in. And look, this cabinet is diverse ideologically. It's diverse in terms of gender and race and background. It's just incredible to have a job creator like Linda McMahon heading up the Small Business Administration, somebody who went from 13 employees to 800 and is just a really true, brilliant businesswoman and job creator. You now have, when you talk about those generals, you have Department of Homeland Security, you have Department of Defense, National Security Advisor. I mean, this is I think this is also within the keeping of Donald Trump to try to get things done quickly with people who have proven their mettle and are people who, like him, are accustomed to being accountable and delivering results.
Indeed.
Kellyanne, all 16 of the positions on cabinet obviously are important, but the big one that everyone is waiting for is Secretary of State. What's the latest on that? When will we find out?
So we obviously are way ahead of schedule when you compare us to past administrations, including President Obama when he was president-elect. He made his first appointment in week 4, and it was Treasury Secretary Tim Geithner. This is a very important decision, Ainsley, and the Secretary of State field has obviously broadened and widened. There are a number of people who have come in recent days and weeks to interview with the President-elect and the Vice President-elect. And just everybody has such a different resume, and They all have to have the same perspective, though. You have to be able to adhere to what will be the Trump doctrine worldwide and be willing to execute on his vision for that role as Secretary of State over at Foggy Bottom. He met with Rex Tillerson, the head of Exxon, this week, as you know. Yesterday, Alan Mulally, the former head of Ford, was there, who obviously did a great job with that company. You've got Governor Romney, Mayor Giuliani, another General Petraeus. You have Senator Bob Corker, who probably would face easy Senate confirmation among his colleagues, who's the head of the Foreign Relations Committee. So you're just talking about a very diverse group. John Bolton, Dana Rohrabacher. I think this is a tremendous process because you can't rush through such an important selection. And at the same time, he is welcoming in a number of men and women who have very diverse backgrounds.
Kellyanne, obviously the list on Secretary of State started small and has expanded. He's talking to a wide swath of people for that potential position. Some people are asking, though, where is Rudy Giuliani, who was seen as the early front runner for that position? Where does he stand? And as it pertains to the Trump doctrine, do you feel like he's where Mr. Trump is on his view of the world?
Well, Mayor Giuliani certainly knows what the Trump doctrine is because he was a very close and loyal advisor all through the campaign, and they've known each other for a number of years. So he was, the mayor was a constant presence pretty much in the waning months of the campaign, had endorsed the president-elect earlier on in, I guess, the summer or spring. But Mayor Giuliani is still in the mix. I think that's obvious because the president-elect has not said publicly who is and who is not, but you can rest assured those who have been considered are on the list moving forward. Yep. And I just think it's going to come down to one man's decision of with whom he's most comfortable and who he thinks can also work with these other cabinet members, the Secretary of Defense, General Mattis, certainly the National Security Advisor, General Flynn. And it's very important to have a cohesive cabinet that is in the service of the president and the vice president.
Alan Mulally, the guy who used to run Ford and Boeing, that's an interesting choice, given that Donald Trump has mentioned both those companies recently. And then Rex Tillerson is interesting because as the top guy at ExxonMobil, he's dealt with Russia and he's dealt with Yemen and countries all over the world. What's interesting
in the
is
developing world, yes.
Absolutely. Time magazine says that apparently Donald Trump has made it very clear he wants the names of the companies that are considering leaving the country and that he is personally going to call each and every one of them. Kellyanne, has he started those phone calls?
Those who work on his behalf are executing on that, making a list and checking it twice. And so it's in process. And anytime the president-elect makes a statement like that or expresses his viewpoint, of course, those of us who are there to serve him follow up on that almost immediately. And I think he's making a great point, only insofar as you saw what happened just last week in Indianapolis with the Carrier deal. The result is so popular to the American people. You had over 60% of Americans saying that they thought that was a terrific deal for the workers. It improved their opinion of the president-elect Donald Trump. That included 40% of Democrats and 54% of self-identified independents and over 80% or so of Republicans. And so he didn't do it for his own image. He did it because it's the right thing to do. And he did it because he made that a centerpiece of his campaign. And before he's even sworn into office as our 45th president, he is making a difference on significant issues like that, the retention of jobs here. So if he can reach out to industry and he can try to do the same thing where it's appropriate and as it can happen, then why not? People know the USA is open for business again. That if you create a more hospitable business climate for employers to feel like they can attract and retain talent here, that they can expand their operations here, that is, to him, it's job number one. And he's made that very clear.
Well, Hillary Clinton has blamed fake news on her loss, and she says the fake news out there is a danger to the public, and she urges government action. We have a soundbite of her, and we'll get your reaction.
Let me just mention briefly one threat in particular that should concern all Americans. It's now clear that so-called fake news can have real-world consequences. This isn't about politics or partisanship. Lives are at risk. Lives of ordinary people just trying to go about their days, to do their jobs.
Kellyanne?
It's just remarkable if she's trying to make a nexus between those statements and her electoral loss, then I'm almost at a loss for words, maybe for the first time in a while, because the idea that they just can't grapple with the fact that I don't know what her message was to America, other than I'm not Donald Trump and you shouldn't vote for him. I don't know what her message was to the working class voters that we captured and the union households we carried in some places by 2 to 1. I don't know what her message was to America's women, where she only got 55 or 56% of the vote as the first female presidential nominee from a major party. The idea that, I mean, the most fake piece of news I heard all along, up until Election Day, and still hear from some people, is that Donald Trump couldn't win. How's that for fake news? Misleading news. The fake news certainly was that Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania were all sewed up, that we couldn't bust through the blue wall. And look, I take seriously what she's saying in terms of people spreading rumors or saying things that aren't true and possible harm coming to people, but it's this whole new cottage industry they're trying to make a big deal of and pin it on one party or one man's supporters. That I disagree with completely, and that has to stop. But a little self-awareness would do for a team that is blaming everybody but themselves for this. It's Bernie Sanders' fault. How dare he won? How dare he run? The guy won 22 states, folks, and over 13 million voters. That ain't nothing. Yeah. It's the alt-right's fault. It's a long list. It's fake news' fault. It's Russian interference. It's Jim Comey, of course, the biggest scapegoat of all. How about you had no message? Yeah. And people just didn't cotton to your candidate.
Kellyanne, why can't they learn? What's preventing the introspection that the other major party in this country can't seem to do?
It's just amazing to me, Pete, because they missed a huge opportunity last week to put into place Tim Ryan as the minority leader in the House and to say to Nancy Pelosi, thanks for your service, but on your watch you've lost 5 dozen over 60 House seats, in addition to the dozen or so of governors, Senate seats, certainly over 1,000 state legislative seats, and she's been the minority leader and Speaker of the House, and since President Obama got there. Guys, 1,000 state legislative seats.
I know.
It's unbelievable how few chambers they control. But they won't learn the lessons. They haven't learned that they are out of touch with the workers of America, that they've become very extreme. The Democratic Party I grew up in no longer exists. The Democratic Party that Bill Clinton won under its banner is gone. The Blue Dog Democrats, the pro-tax reform Democrats, the pro-life and pro-Second Amendment Democrats, they're gone. And you even see it in the approach to terrorism. She referred to them as our determined enemies instead of radical Islamic terrorists or just even terrorists at her convention. So there's no introspection, there's no reflection, and I couldn't be happier because I felt such relief last week. I was so worried the Democrats were going to learn a lesson from this election and actually install a guy who represents Youngstown, Ohio, Mahoning County, a county that went for over 60% to President Obama, and that Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton were separated by 2 or 3 points this time.
There you go. Kellyanne, thank you very much for joining us. We know you got to go back to the tower and get to work. You're working the phones. I understand you're trying to get either Justin Timberlake or Bruno Mars to perform at the inauguration, right?
Yes. You'll be the third to know.
Okay. All right, Kellyanne.
They can call me, by the way.
What's that?
Call me. Take care. They can call me.
Thank you very much. All right, Will.
Bye.
Great to see you.
All right. Well, as you just heard, President-elect Donald Trump's making a promise to Americans.
Administration will follow 2 simple rules: buy American and hire American.
Fox News headlines 24/7, Channel 115.
We will put our people, not people from other lands, our people back to work in the process. Rebuilding this country with American hands by American workers. We're going to do it. My administration will follow 2 simple rules: buy American and hire American.
There, President-elect Donald Trump last night in Des Moines promising to put Americans back to work, and his first step nominating fast food executive Andy Puzder for labor secretary. So does this cabinet pick show that Mr. Trump is dedicated to keeping his promises?
Of course we know who to ask that question to. Stuart Varney, host of Varney & Company on the Fox Business Network, is here to weigh in. What's your take?
Good morning.
Good morning.
My take is that Andy Puzder runs 2 restaurant chains, Hardee's and Carl's Jr. He saved them from bankruptcy
They worked. Everyone remembers them.
Yeah, okay. Whatever you say.
You can say it.
I just wish that Carl's were in New York because that burger looks so good.
It looks fantastic. Also, he's going to be grilled about the fact that he is against a $15 minimum wage.
Absolutely he is. He's been a frequent visitor, frequent guest on Varney and Company, and he's never missed an opportunity to go up against the $15 an hour minimum wage movement. He says that that is a job killer, and he's got good evidence to show that he's right. After all, there's an awful lot of restaurants in America these days where you order on a tablet and a kitchen runner brings it out to you, so you don't have to pay $15 an hour to the waiter, to the wait staff. He's also against the new overtime rules. So there's going to be a fierce fight for this man in his confirmation hearings because he opposes everything that the unions have stood for.
Stuart, with this pick, is this the most pro-business, anti-regulatory environment, pro-worker administration you've seen?
Yes, I think it is. This is a cabinet that's made up of, well, 3 generals so far and an awful lot of business people. And they've got hands-on executive experience. At his speech last night, arguably, you could say that this president-elect, is selling America. He's saying, look, we are open for business. Come and do business here. We'll lower the taxes. We'll get some economic growth going. Keep the jobs here because this is the United States of America.
Well, Wall Street loves it because it's on fire. You're going to be talking about that over across the hall in Stuart Varney and Company over on Fox.
20,000 on the Dow, a Trump rally.
Yeah.
It's very close.
All right, Stuart,
Thanks,
thank
Stuart.
you.
Thank you.
Stuart, appreciate it. And if your credit card hasn't been hacked, it's about to be. Stick around to hear why.
Yikes.
Ooh. Series, and today we're focusing on holiday shopping and Christmas shopping. The National Retail Federation estimates online credit card fraud will lead to $4 billion in losses this Christmas season.
So how can you protect yourself from these shopping scams? Joining us now with some tips is the author of a book called Black Market Billions, Heather Herzog. Good to see you again.
Good to see you both, too.
What are some tips that we need to watch out, or what can you give us so that we're not scammed this holiday season?
Well, I'm going to give you a big number. So it's $7.2 billion. That's how much the online fraud cost is going to be when it comes to 2020. So this is increasing, and people really need to be aware of this, especially more people that are going online shopping. You know, people are trying to de-stress. Retail Me Not, I came out with a statistic that 1 in 5 people go online to just shop just to de-stress.
It's so much easier.
I'm doing 100% of my shopping online.
Well, there you go. Your pajamas. There you go.
Give us some tips on how to protect ourselves online.
Right. Well, one of them is to just be aware of what sites you're going to. So that is legit. So when you're perusing around, you're seeing one, you see a deal that may seem too good to be true. It probably is. So what you want to do in order to protect yourself is that you want to go ahead and make sure, let's say the grammar isn't that great on that site. Right? This is the time to be judgmental about that kind of stuff. It's probably not a good site. Same thing with apps too. Like if you want to go on and look for a shopping app, like I was talking about Retail Me Not, you want to make sure that you have the app that is correct. It has high ratings, and again, it's written in proper English. So so that's one way to protect yourself. Also, when people call you and they're trying to solicit information from you, you don't want to go ahead and give that credit card information out. You want to make sure that if you are giving out that credit card information, you're initiating that call and making sure that people are you're not just giving out your credit card willy-nilly.
We get a lot of phone calls, particularly around the holidays, where people are asking, they're soliciting for charities, and what we always say, because we don't know who it really is, we always say, since you've got our phone number, why don't you go ahead and send us something through the mail, and we'll respond to that.
Exactly. And another that's a perfect example too. People are also getting their packages delivered to them. You want to make sure that, again, you're going on a legit site, that you're making sure that you're putting your address in there, but you also want to make sure too that site is protected. It's called an SSL certification, and so I know that sounds a little wonky, but you want to make sure that site has that certification. That basically makes sure that you are purchasing things that it's protected, that you are being protected, and also personal firewalls. So again, this all sounds like data speak here, but that is something that you could just go online and buy. It's basically a firewall that you can put on your desktop to make sure that you have that added protection, so that you are making sure that your stuff isn't out there in the wild west of the web.
So if you go shopping, you better trust the store. Better make sure you know that it's real.
Exactly.
Thank you very much for joining us live.
Thank you. Good to see you too.
do.
All right, coming up, Pete Hegseth has some explaining to do. What was he doing in Washington, D.C. at 11 o'clock last night, and how'd he get here?
And Donald Trump might have left Iowa, but Abby Huntsman is still there, and she is in the diner. She's having breakfast with friends. Hey, Abby.
Good morning, guys. Yeah, he was here speaking last night. I'm here with the voters here in Iowa at the Machine Shed. We're talking about his message about American jobs and keeping them here, and just sort of what they're thinking about the mood of the country right now. Can I give you some coffee, sir? Can you eat that whole thing yourself?
No.
These cinnamon rolls that we've been talking about all morning, they are huge. We also have a retired farmer coming up.
First, I'm Heather Childers.
And I am Jackie Ibanez. It's now 31 after the hour. Good morning. Showing his gratitude, President-elect Donald Trump hitting the road again.
So the short list got longer, and now it's short again.
Longer, shorter, longer again. The roller coaster continues. As you mentioned, 2 weeks ago, we were told it was down to 2 candidates. Then last week, it was up to 4. Now we're told there are 5 leading contenders for President-elect Trump's Secretary of State. So it appears this search is very much ongoing and anything but final. Sources close to the transition do tell us, though, that a new name is standing out among the group, ExxonMobil Chairman Rex Tillerson. We're told that Mr. Trump was very impressed with Tillerson after their meeting at Trump Tower on Tuesday, and that with ExxonMobil being based in over 50 countries, he likes the international experience that Tillerson would bring to the job. The other 4 leading candidates are some familiar names whose stock has fallen over the last few weeks. We're told there is still strong resistance from some in the transition team to Mitt Romney, and that Mr. Trump was upset with how Rudy Giuliani was publicly speaking about himself as the Secretary of State shortly after the election. Mr. Trump apparently loved retired General David Petraeus for the job, but after already naming 3 other generals to the cabinet, there's concern about adding a 4th. We're also told that Tennessee Senator Bob Corker is still in the mix as well. Yesterday, Mr. Trump did announce his pick for Labor Secretary, though, fast food executive Andy Prudzer. And last night at his thank you rally in Des Moines, Iowa, Mr. Trump talked about welfare and getting Americans back to work.
It's time to help Americans get off the welfare and get back into the labor market. And they're going to want to do it. They're going to want to do it. Rebuilding this country with American hands by American workers. My administration will follow 2 simple rules. Buy American and hire American.
That message has been constant at his thank you rallies so far, and today that thank you tour will continue with a stop this morning in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and tonight in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And keep your ears and eyes open for more cabinet picks at those rallies, of course. Heather and Jackie.
When does Donald Trump sleep?
Yeah, he says he does not sleep, actually. He says he doesn't sleep at all.
Wow, amazing.
3-4 hours is good enough for him, he says.
Well, that's what we get, right?
But I don't know if I'm operating on all cylinders all the time. I mean, he's going constantly. So
and watching right now. Thanks.
Have a good one.
Courage inspired a generation to explore and serve. Godspeed, John Glenn.
Very well said. The Marine Corps tweeting this image saying, the Corps lost a legend today. Colonel John Glenn, an astronaut, a senator, a Marine, died at the age of 95.
And President George H.W. Bush releasing this statement. By his long and able service in the United States Senate, John Glenn helped bring hope and opportunity not only to his beloved Ohio, but to every corner of America as well. President-elect Donald Trump expected to announce his Secretary of State pick next week, maybe. So what do each of the 5 frontrunners bring to the table?
Here to break it down is former State Department press officer and political strategist Morgan Ortagus. Good morning, Morgan. How are you?
Good morning.
Good morning. Happy Friday.
So, happy Friday to you. Let's break it down a little bit. We've got Mitt Romney here. He said some not so nice things about Trump during his campaign, and we have seen him going in and out the last couple of weeks. Haven't seen it for, a couple of days. What are you thinking about him?
So Mitt Romney is clearly probably one of the more controversial choices just because of what you said, what happened during the primary, during the election. However, I would say that if, Donald Trump is an incredibly smart businessman, he's a billionaire clearly, and I think that he knows how to put the right people on his team. So if he's willing to forgive Mitt Romney, I'm sure his supporters will be. So going past that and really looking at the qualifications Mitt Romney has for the job, in addition to his political and foreign policy experience, Romney is a businessman just like Trump, and Trump has said himself that he thinks that Romney looks the part, and I think that is really important to Mr. Trump. But Romney has worked around the world in business. He understands the art of the deal, and it looks like Mr. Trump is probably trending towards picking people that understand how to negotiate and how to make deals.
Yeah, he knows both the political side and the business side, which Trump seems to like.
And had that big meal together. So America's mayor, Rudy Giuliani, we heard a lot about him at the beginning, was a loyal Trump surrogate throughout the entire campaign, very vocal, but perhaps a little too vocal because he may have upset Mr. Trump a little bit by speaking about the Secretary of State nomination just a little bit too early.
Well, listen, I think Rudy Giuliani is probably the grassroots favorite for this job. He is, as you said, he was a loyal surrogate throughout the campaign, forcefully so at the RNC on television leading up to the election, when many people, kind of like Chris Christie, actually dropped off and weren't being a loyal surrogate. But listen, beyond the loyalty factor and beyond the factor that the grassroots loves him, Rudy Giuliani has, in my opinion, the most crucial quality out of everyone that we're going to talk about today, and that is that he has the president's ear. I've served in 2 embassies overseas, and what people are looking for in foreign countries when they're talking to their ambassador, when they're talking to their Secretary of State, is they want someone who they know has the ear of the president, that person is coming there actually speaking for the president, that they have a close relationship. Nobody on this list has that the way Rudy Giuliani has that.
So backs up and agrees with his policies, too.
Next is Senator Bob Corker. He's chairman of Senate Foreign Relations Committee. What do you think about him in terms of what kind of candidate would he be?
Senator Corker is an incredibly impressive senator. He would be a very safe pick. He certainly wouldn't make waves the way Rudy or Romney may in terms of the press, but he would have a relatively easy Senate confirmation. He's the head of the Foreign Relations Committee in the Senate, very well liked and respected among his colleagues on both sides of the aisle. So he's definitely the safe pick out of the group.
All right, so General Petraeus, we're told that Mr. Trump really liked the conversations that he's had with him so far, but maybe one too many generals?
That's what a lot of people are saying, but I think Mr. Trump has to go with his gut and who he thinks will be best for the job. He's clearly drawn towards generals and drawn towards businessmen and women, as I said earlier, because he wants people who can negotiate and make a deal. General Petraeus, of course, is not without controversy from some of the things that happened a few years ago, but he is absolutely an American hero. He is someone that got us through Iraq and Afghanistan, and the country owes him a gratitude for his service.
Very true.
A name that we don't hear a lot about, Rex Tillerson. He's CEO ExxonMobil, world's most valuable oil company. He seems like an unlikely pick, kind of.
But did make a deal with Russia, a Russian oil company.
Yeah, this is somewhat of a dark horse, but again speaks to the theme in the narrative that the president-elect is looking throughout his cabinet for business experience. He did pick somewhat of a controversial EPA head, so I don't know that I see him picking the head of another oil company. We'll see. But listen, if we can put more businessmen and women in charge of the nation's foreign policy and our security, I think that's a good deal.
Yeah, clearly wants to bring jobs to Americans, make America profitable again, and a leader in this world. Thank you,
Absolutely.
Morgan.
Thanks.
And now let's check in with
in the U.S. Senate, almost 24. He had already, look at it this way, he had already auditioned heaven. He had already been up there, and then, but what a wonderful, wonderful hero. I interviewed him a couple of times over the years. Once I interviewed him about the Challenger disaster and whether or not they should have had ejection seats, and he gave me a really heartfelt answer, you know, about that. You just think, why didn't they have a way out? And he said about weight, the weight of the aircraft, and, you know, there are other considerations. Interviewed him also about how we were doing nuclear conferences and including countries like Iraq. at the time still ruled by Saddam Hussein, in our civilian, atomic energy conferences and symposiums, and they were getting, our secrets from these civilian kinds of get-togethers. But a wonderful, measured. My in-laws are all from Ohio. Sure. He's a legend there, an icon there, a great American, and sorely missed. And from my point of view, at my age, what I remember most is when he jumped out of the airplane and went into space in his late 70s.
That's right.
77 years old. I mean, imagine.
Yeah. Well, oldest person to go into space.
Yeah.
And also a combat veteran, Marine of 150 combat missions.
Almost 150 missions in World War II in Korea. Absolutely.
Speaking of the military, Donald Trump hiring three generals to be on his cabinet. What do you think about that? So far. Yeah,
well, I've been from 2001 to 2012, kind of one of the senior war correspondents around here, and I have to say that in my entire life, some of the most intelligent, competent, patriotic, effective leaders I have met have been in the military. Some of my best friends, I remember Ray Odierno and John Campbell. John Campbell started as a colonel when the war started. I watched him get 1 star, 2 stars, 3 stars, 4. David Petraeus, I met him, as he was bringing the 101st Airborne into Baghdad in 2003. He had 2 stars. Watched him get a 3rd star and then a 4th star, become commander, win the surge, basically, take over in Afghanistan, and get to be director of the CIA before he had his problem.
But there are those on the left who go, he's packing his cabinet with these military guys, setting himself up for a coup.
That's ridiculous.
Of course it is. Or if not a coup, then an overwhelming emphasis on war or combat or engagement.
Right. But it's also, though, about management. Yeah. It's also about competence, isn't it? I mean, why should that exclude someone? I mean, Generals Mattis and Kelly, my goodness, these are some of the best Americans out there. Why not? It is not an accident that they are all appointed to various civilian boards of directors. They get big CEO type jobs. They are exactly the kind of people that we want in that leadership. And remember Colin Powell in Bush 43's administration. Then you had Alexander Haig before that in Nixon and the Reagan administration. I mean, we have classically had generals as presidents, Dwight Eisenhower, Ulysses S. Grant, and so forth. I just think that why not tap the best amongst us? I always felt that I was trying to catch up to colleagues who had, like Pete, had actually served. Even though I had around soldiers and sailors and airmen and Marines and Coast Guardsmen and all the rest of all my career, to not actually wear the uniform and go through the discipline. And I think that Donald Trump also had some of that same insecurity. He went to military school as I did, so had some experience in that regard. But then to not have served and then to be in the company of those who have given so much and sacrificed so much, I always felt a bit insecure about it. I am delighted. Even President Obama had Eric Shinseki, remember the general who was a skeptic on whether or not
he had a bunch of generals
Saddam
before he fired him.
Yeah, well, he had Dennis Blair, the admiral. He had James Clapper, the national security.
Look, the left's got to complain about something.
Yeah, but I think that's ridiculous. I think that, to me, now, there are obviously the EPA choice, and there's some of the others that kind of grate on me. I just don't see how they work out. In Oklahoma, we have earthquakes because of fracking, and how can you, I just not sure about, some of the picks. But I am delighted overall. If you're a conservative, this is a magnificent cabinet, and I think some of these picks have been absolutely triple A. I give Trump an A for this prep. He's way ahead of the timetable set by President Obama last time around in terms of this transition. He'll be ready on Inauguration Day.
What do you want him to do as far as illegal immigration is concerned? Because there's a story this morning, 2 women were killed in Louisville, Kentucky by a guy who was driving a truck. He had been deported 8 times, an illegal immigrant here. Similar story to what happened to Kate Steinle.
Right. When someone is a repeat offender in terms of coming across the border, they are guilty of a very serious federal crime, unlike the first time. First time you get a freebie.
But 8 times.
He should have been. No doubt that he should have been in jail.
He should have been. He was deported 8 times. He should have been in Mexico.
But before they are deported, they have to serve 5 years in federal prison. That's the way you deter.
They're supposed to.
That's the fellow in Kate Steinle's case. He had just gotten out of jail. I feel that you have to have a mix of muscle and compassion when you're dealing. To answer your question, Ainsley, I think that you've got. I think Kelly's exactly the right guy. He had Southern Command.
Yep.
I watched these guys in action in Colombia against the drug lords. Yeah. They know the border, they know the scene in Latin America.
All connected to that,
and it is absolutely all connected. The drugs are very much connected. I think that I am for absolutely secure borders. Where I am compassionate, and some people are not, are for groups like the Dreamers, the brought here as children by their parents. He has indicated that he's going to show compassion to them, and if he does, that's the constituency.
But if you don't do the wall first, then you get folks coming in 8 times over again.
That's what happened to Reagan.
Remember, I covered El Chapo, and I was in El Chapo's tunnel. The mile-long tunnel that he got out of the Supermax penitentiary in Mexico. The wall is not going to stop El Chapo. El Chapo's going to tunnel under it. He's going to use drones over. He's going to use boats around. Yeah, it's going to stop Juan and Maria, the grape pickers. If that is a national priority, I have stopped opposing the wall. I no longer oppose the wall. If you want to use infrastructure dollars to build the wall, God bless. Go ahead and do it. I have no serious objection to it. I'm just saying, a 100-foot wall for $1 trillion and a 101-foot ladder for $25. I think that it's a waste of money.
You put Donald Trump and 3 generals in El Chapo's way, and I think he might be stopped.
Well, I would love to. That's the people you want to stop.
All right, Geraldo, have a great weekend.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
And Ainsley, #1 best-selling author.
I know. We all sit here humbled by our best-selling author right here in the middle.
Y'all are so sweet. We are back with a Fox News alert. Just hours from now, 2 recount battle hearings are set to begin, both spearheaded by Jill Stein.
Oh, the Green Party candidate at 1%. The Green Party presidential candidate not giving up just yet, setting the stage for new drama and costing taxpayers millions.
So what is going on today? Deandra Corinthos is live from Milwaukee. She's from Fox 2 there, live with what we can expect today. Deandra.
Good morning. We can tell you guys that in Wisconsin, the recount effort is about 80% complete and to hold a hearing today, considering whether or not to halt the recount process. And this lawsuit was actually filed a couple of weeks ago at the beginning of all of this by a supporter of President-elect Donald Trump, as well as 2 pro-Trump's super PAC. And they wanted the recount effort to not even start to begin with. Well, it has. So there is that hearing that's happening today. And like I said, in Wisconsin, 80% of the votes have already been recounted, and so far the discrepancies between the recount and Election Day have really been minor. At this point, Hillary Clinton has gained about 61 votes, but she is still trailing President-elect Donald Trump in the state of Wisconsin. He led Wisconsin by 22,177 votes, and Hillary Clinton gained 61. His campaign also gained some votes, but at this point, like I said, the difference is really quite negligible in terms of making a difference. So we'll have to see what this federal judge decides, but it doesn't look like it would change much if the recount process stopped, only for the fact that taxpayers have put in money for these election workers to be recounting all of these votes.
All right. Deandra Corinthos, live out in Milwaukee with the latest. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So Jill Stein keeps her money, but the taxpayers are on the hook?
Well, here's the thing. Hillary Clinton picked up 61 votes. Did Jill Stein pick up any?
No. She got... Like you said, 1% in those 3 states.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. I'm
glad we're paying for it.
Yep. Just saying.
President-elect Donald Trump continuing his thank you tour to You America with a stop in Des Moines, Iowa last night, where he won 51% of the vote.
This is the state's governor. Terry Branstad has been tapped to be the ambassador to China. So how are the voters feeling about that decision? And if he's leaving, who's taking over?
That's right. We may have a special guest there. Abby Huntsman is live at the Machine Shed restaurant in Urbandale, Iowa, with that very special guest. Abby, who do you have there?
That's right. I wonder who's going to take over here in Iowa. I think she's sitting right next to me. Lieutenant Governor Kim Reynolds, who will be the first female governor of the state of Iowa. You were at Mr. Trump's big rally last night. What was it like?
Well, first of all, there's a lot of energy and excitement in the room, and we saw that when we were on the campaign trail. Record number turnout at all of the rallies with President-elect Trump, and so I saw that same energy there. He really speaks to the people. We were at capacity. I saw a lot of red Make America Great hats, and just really, I think, optimistic about the future of America.
Speaking of the future, how are you feeling about things?
Well,
You're about to step into a new role.
I know. I'm very, very excited. First of all, I am so proud and excited for Governor Branstad. I cannot think of a more qualified individual to serve as the ambassador to China. So not only, because of his experience and his character, but the relationship that he has with President Xi. So it's a tremendous opportunity for Iowa and for this country to have him serve in that capacity.
So he was on my flight yesterday from New York here to Iowa, and so I snatched him as he was getting off the plane, as only we do here at Fox & Friends. We got our own exclusive with Governor Branstad. I asked him about you and what advice he has for you as you're going to take over, and here's what he told me.
Okay.
I asked her to be my running mate, and we won 2 elections, and she's been a full partner as the lieutenant governor, and she's prepared.
That's great. Any advice for her?
Well, continue to work hard, continue to stay in touch with the people, and I know she'll do great.
He says you're prepared, you're willing to work hard. He had just the nicest things to say about you.
Well, I have been blessed to have the opportunity to serve with him. I have had training from the best governor in the nation, and we go to all 99 counties each and every year, and it really is about working hard, and we are working hard every single day on behalf of Iowans. I'm excited for the opportunity.
Well, congratulations to you, and thanks for being with us this morning. It's great to have you here. I want to get over to this table here and get their thoughts. A few of them were actually at the rally last night. Rex, we'll start with you. You were there.
Yes,
what were your thoughts?
Well, first of all, the crowd was very much energized and enthusiastic, so when Donald Trump came in, everybody was just elated, obviously, to see him. And then in terms of what he spoke about, yes, it's been publicized repeatedly, but at the bottom line is it's very significant issues that he's talking about. Obviously, everything from the border to all of the other areas that he wants to make change with. So
I want to get to Mona here as well. You've been in Iowa for a long time, a part of the Republican Party. Mr. Trump had to win you over. He wasn't your first pick.
Well, no, he wasn't. I was actually a Carly supporter, and
Carly Fiorina.
Carly Fiorina, and no, Trump had to win me over, but at the same time, I was not a never Trumper, because when I'm involved in the caucuses, I'm always looking towards the general election, because that's our goal. And I have to say, the Supreme Court was my #1 issue, and so I knew I needed to vote for President Trump. And I think his cabinet picks have been outstanding. Betsy DeVos, Jeff Sessions.
4 generals, I think, already. I'll get to Rod up here as well. You were with your, of course, Fox & Friends shirt that we promoted earlier. We just love that. I've been watching it for years. You were at the rally last night as well. What were your thoughts? What was your takeaway?
I just like the newfound enthusiasm, the fact that we're going to improve our military and our economy, and we'll be able to negotiate from a position of strength.
He said there are 2 things. My presidency is going to be simple. It's going to be about buy American, hire American.
Yes.
I think that hits home for a lot of people right now.
Yes, and especially the people that are his supporters, the middle America, middle class. Yeah.
All right, well, I'm going to toss it back into New York. Guys, back to you.
Thank you very much, Abby. Great job out there.
Yeah.
And the great thing, not only are we getting the perspective of all the people who are in those places that you've been at in Iowa and earlier this week in Florida, but now we're absolutely hungry for breakfast. A big platter.
She said she's sending them too. Food, the big cinnamon rolls.
I love the food. Looks
Cinnamon
delicious,
rolls.
and apparently they're doing a lot of business, because a lot of you at home, cinnamon rolls, are trying to get them to going to Niners, because we get here. Middle America is thinking.
Yeah, I mean, Donald Trump ran to say, "I will be the voice of the forgotten man and woman," and that's who we're.
No longer are you forgotten.
Amen.
That's right. We got a microphone, and we are your opportunity to say what you're feeling on TV. Students are complaining that Abdul Razik Artan was wrongly killed by police for being non-white, even declaring his actions were not relevant to him being shot. What?
Well, here now to react. I can't wait to hear this. Is the host of Justice, Judge Jeanine Pirro. Good morning, Judge.
Good morning.
What are they saying? What are they saying?
What
this
they're
guy
saying,
with the butcher knife should not have been shot.
Okay, here's a guy
who is driving into a crowd of students at Ohio State, then jumps out of the car, takes a butcher knife, and goes at these kids and starts stabbing them. These people are now saying that, look, he was wrongly killed. He is another non-white wrongly killed by a cop, as though this cop who killed him, and I think the cop is a hero, should have waited for him to exhaust himself by stabbing people until he tired and then cuffed him. This is what's going on campuses in the United States today. They are calling this Somali refugee, and let me digress. This guy, this Ali Artan Razzouk, whatever his name is, was a student at Ohio State University. He had just gotten into this country as a Somali refugee in June of 2014. We welcome him with open arms, him and his 6 siblings and his mother. What do we do then? We send him to college. We pay for that college. And we give him a degree. Now, if he is in a refugee camp in Pakistan for 7 years, what was he taking? A correspondence course that all of a sudden we're going to give him an associate's degree a year and a half later? Give him put him in Ohio State University? What is wrong with us? I mean, there are so many pieces to this.
Well, what's the logic of the cop? We reflexively understand him to be a hero because he saves lives. Right. What's their logic that suddenly turns him into a bad guy?
What turns him into a bad guy is they're saying that this guy may, no matter what the wrong, whether you kill someone, commit domestic violence, or stab people, justice, quote, does not come from a cop's bullet. Really? Maybe you ought to understand criminal justice 101. When someone is trying to kill someone else, imagine someone that you love, maybe a cop ought to use force as a can't that in school, and you don't belong in college, and you especially don't belong as a professor at these Ohio State University. And then it gets crazier. The president issues a statement saying, you know, this is extremism, hogwash. It's Islamic extremism, because he then put on his Facebook, if you don't stop this if you don't stop going after Muslims, we lone wolves will never stop.
We share your outrage at this story.
And I'm not done.
No, she's not saying it. We'll hear more of it this weekend. Judge Janine, we thank you very much.
Saturday night, 9 o'clock.
We'll be tubeside.
We'll be watching.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Well, it's a Christmas television classic, and
she's right. It was the size of.
So why do we live in New York?
Yeah, you shouldn't. That's why I live in the Midwest.
Please bring us some.
That is a cinnamon roll.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Iowa, the state of my birth. So you saw Donald Trump last night. Can you believe he interrupted the Bill O'Reilly show? Live from the Hy-Vee Hall, 6,000 people in attendance. I read that some of the people who were behind him and real close to the stage, those were actually VIPs. They were volunteers who worked during the caucus.
That was smart, so he's rewarding them.
Absolutely, and that's what this whole thank you tour has been all about. Usually after a politician gets your vote, you don't see him again for 2 years or 4 years.
Yeah.
Donald Trump actually came back to Iowa and say, hey, listen, this is where it all started. Thank you for everything.
Several things impress me about what he's doing. After he speaks, he goes down into the crowd and he meets with them and doesn't just sign a few autographs. He keeps going and going and going. Also, he talked about, as we showed the clip, respecting the American flag. The crowd went crazy. There were some hecklers there, some protesters, and he said, I think you're actually on my side. And he looked at the crowd, he said, they just don't know it yet.
Well, I think a lot of that has been the case. A lot of people, rejected Donald Trump or wanted to, and now they're hearing what he's saying, looking at what he's doing, how he's conducting himself across the country, and they got an eyebrow up saying, "How this is not the guy I thought he was."
And you were talking about all the generals. You've been on all these shows on Fox talking about his cabinet and having all these military individuals on the cabinet, and some people are being critical of that. But he said last night, he said, do y'all want to be strong? And everyone said, yeah, we want to be strong. And he said, well, our enemy is strong. We need to be strong too.
And you want to win? These guys know how to win.
Right.
Absolutely.
You're going to be tired of winning, he says.
I'm already tired.
We're ready for that. Listen, the governor of the great state of Iowa, Terry Branstad, the longest-serving American governor, was in attendance, not only on Abby's plane, but there last night, did a little talking because he will be the new ambassador to China. He apparently has made 6 trade missions to China on behalf of the state of Iowa. He's also a friend of the Chinese president, so he's a good guy to have on the team, on the Trump team, which Donald Trump talked last night about how he's putting together this cabinet that is a bunch of all-stars.
In filling my cabinet, I'm looking for people who fully understand the meaning of service and who are committed to advancing the common good. I believe we're in the process of putting together one of the great cabinets that has ever been assembled in the history of our nation. Do you like it so far, everybody?
And it does sound as if the big pick will be released either next week or the week after, Secretary of State.
Yeah, the list gets long and then short and then long and then short. So we're all anxious to see.
And this is where we are right now in the state of play with Secretary of State Mitt Romney, Rudy Giuliani, General Petraeus, Bob Corker, and then a couple of businessmen that have emerged more recently. The former CEO of Ford and Boeing, turnaround specialist, as well as Rex Tillerson of ExxonMobil.
And Rex Tillerson, actually, according to our sources, is currently kind of the front runner. He is a guy who has had business dealings as the head of ExxonMobil in the countries of Russia and in Yemen and in all those nations that sell oil, and so he's got a good relationship there. Apparently Mitt Romney is kind of, he's not flatlining, but he's not doing so well, all because of that speech he gave. And it does sound as if Rudy Giuliani, probably on the downside as well, Team Trump upset that Rudy, shortly after the election, went out and started talking about, well, you know, if I'm Secretary of State, and the team didn't like that.
I think the voters want some place for Rudy because he's been so loyal to Donald Trump and was on the campaign trail with him until like 3 in the morning. But you know what people love about him? What's so interesting? He grew up as a millionaire, or his dad gave him $1 million. He turned that into $1 billion, and somehow he is so relatable to the American people. I guess because he worked so hard to get where he is, and he talked to the American people about jobs. Listen.
The American worker built this country, and now it's time for American workers to have a government that, for the first time in decades, answers to them. We're going to answer to them. My plan begins with bold structural reform to create millions of really good paying jobs. I think both parties to a certain extent, but especially the other side, they forgot about those people. That's why I call them the forgotten men and the forgotten women. They're not forgotten anymore, folks. Rebuilding this country with American hands by American workers. We're going to do it. We're going to have people that haven't worked for years. They're going to love working. They're going to love it. They're going to be incentivized. My administration will follow 2 simple rules. Buy American and hire American.
And speaking of hiring American and jobs leaving the country, according to Time magazine, Donald Trump said, I want to know the names of every company that's considering leaving, and I am going to personally call every company.
No, I mean, you feel like he said it in one of his tweets, America open for business. It's not slanted toward regulators or bureaucrats or lawyers or government employees. It's slanted toward the little man and the job that they have. It's pretty cool.
He also yesterday remembered John Glenn. I'm sure you saw the news.
Talked about 1,100 jobs remaining here in Indianapolis, which is a falsehood. He got up and denied ever saying anything that he promised to keep these carrier jobs in this country, which was a falsehood. So, I was just calling him out on it.
You got a union boss out at Carrier continuing to call out President-elect Donald Trump, accusing him of lying to the public about how many jobs he saved in that Carrier deal. Well, right after that, Mr. Trump fired back, tweeting this. If United Steelworkers 1999 was any good, they would have kept those jobs in Indiana. Spend more time working, less time reducing dues. Here to react is Mark Mix, the president of the National Right to Work Legal Defense Foundation. He joins us from our nation's capital. Mark, good morning to you.
Good morning, Steve. Good to be with you.
It's extraordinary to me, as a former union member myself in one of those TV unions, to hear a guy who's supposedly the head of a union bad-mouthing somebody who just saved a bunch of union jobs.
Yeah, that is interesting. The fact that we're not celebrating the fact that 800 jobs are staying in Indianapolis, 80 non-union clerical jobs, and some research and development jobs there. You know, the math really is kind of irrelevant at this point in that those manufacturing jobs, good high-paying manufacturing jobs, are staying here. They ought to be happy about that as opposed to attacking the president-elect.
You know, ultimately, Donald Trump was doing Chuck Jones, the union head's job. He did his best to keep the jobs in the state of, we're talking about out there in Indiana.
Indeed. And, you know, Indiana's been an interesting story since they passed a right-to-work law back in 2012. They've had a 9% increase in manufacturing jobs out there. And a lot of non-union jobs have been created. These unionized jobs that were on the cutting block, if you will, have now been saved. That's part of the story and the narrative in Indiana. And these union bosses who are really growing more and more out of touch with rank-and-file workers should understand that saving any job is important,
Sure.
and not alone President Trump working hard at it.
Mark, we've talked to a number of people out at the Carrier plant, and, you know, some of them didn't vote for Donald Trump, but they are very appreciative, and now they're on the Trump train. But ultimately, it sounds like out there at the plant, the union families were split, about 50-50. Half were on the Trump train, even though they're historically Democrats and support the Democrat union causes, et cetera, and the other was for Hillary. So for them to, you know, this union head not to embrace the fact that the Republican is saving their jobs is just a head scratcher.
Yeah, that is interesting, but it's not really surprising in that, you know, union officials are growing more and more out of touch with rank-and-file workers. In fact, politically, we know that union households voted maybe about half for Donald Trump this election and over 40% in previous elections, but yet union officials spend about, in the last election cycle, between 2012 and 2013, $1.7 billion on politics and lobbying. 9 out of every 10 of those dollars goes to one party, and it's not President-elect Trump's party.
And it's got to be infuriating if you're a Republican member of a union and they're putting all the dough into the Democrat coffers. Mark Mix, thank you very much for joining us on this Friday. Have a wonderful weekend, sir.
My pleasure, Steve. Thank you.
You betcha. All right.